Well, good morning and happy Sabbath. I'd like to extend greetings to our Croydon Church family and to all those who are visiting with us online. The topic of my presentation this morning is sweet enough, the danger of refined sugar, and at the end of the presentation I'm going to set you a challenge. So I hope you're ready for it. Come on, let's go. I want to start by laying a biblical foundation by reminding us what is written in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 19 that says, "What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost which is in you, which you have of God, and you are not your own?" And it is for this reason that we need to be careful about what we put into our bodies, and we need to honour our body temple so that we will be able to give God the service that he deserves. The Bible scholars amongst us will remember that in the Garden of Eden, Satan, the serpent, tempted Adam and Eve, and the first temptation was about appetite. The same temptation persists today. Sugary foods have been presented to us as good options, good snack foods, and they have disrupted the way that we see food and the way that we eat. The problem with the consumption of excessive sugar is that it affects the brain in a very significant way. Research indicates that sugar has a drug-like effect on the reward center of the brain that results in addiction-like effects. And there has been some research by MIT that has shown that sugar addiction and cocaine addiction use the same neurological pathway. We also know that excessive sugar consumption impairs cognitive skills and self-control. And as Christians, if we relate this back to the opening text, we can see that if we're out of control, we will be unable to honour our body temples and also unable to do God's work. You see, the overconsumption of refined sugar creates a perpetual cycle of addiction. And you end up craving sugary foods all the time. So if you eat refined sugar, it causes a surge in the neurotransmitter dopamine. And dopamine is associated with the feeling of pleasure. Also, at the same time, you have mass secretion of insulin, and insulin is the hormone produced by the pancreas that helps to regulate blood glucose levels. So because you have had a surge of insulin, the amount of blood sugar that you have then goes down significantly, because that's what insulin does. It helps to decrease the amount of blood glucose that's circulating. So as your blood glucose level drops, the body starts craving this lost sugar high. And because of the craving of this lost sugar high, you start to feel hungry because your blood glucose levels are low, and then you eat more sugary food. And this is a cycle of addiction. Well, most adults and children in the Western world eat too much free sugar. So now I need to clarify the difference between free sugar and sugar that's found naturally in food. So we all know that fruits and vegetables contain sugar, but the real reason why the sugar in the fruits and vegetables isn't problematic for most people is because it also comes combined with fibre and protein that's in the food, and it also has a lot of nutrients and macro and micronutrients as well, so that when you eat a vegetable or a fruit, you're taking in other nutrition as well as the sugar. Whereas free sugar is problematic because it's not combined with fibre or protein. So when it's ingested, it enters the bloodstream really quickly. I'll give you some example of free sugars. Would be all sugars that are added to food and drink. So we're talking about table sugar, also talking about high fructose corn syrup. And just as a point of reference, Even natural sugars like honey and maple syrup are also classified as free sugars because we're adding these to our food. Now, time doesn't permit me to elaborate on the effects of refined sugar on the body, but I'm just going to highlight some issues that can be caused if we overconsume refined sugar. Heart disease, weight gain, cavities, liver disease, kidney disease, unstable energy levels, and this can also affect our mood, diabetes, memory loss. Some research indicates that the consumption of a lot of refined sugar is also associated with Alzheimer's disease. And we also have research that shows that the overconsumption of refined sugar can cause inflammatory conditions in the body. For example, it can exacerbate arthritis and other inflammatory conditions. So now that I've made the case for why the overconsumption of refined sugar is so problematic, I'm going to give you a few tips on foods that you should consider avoiding. Beverages, especially carbonated soft drinks, because the average can of fizzy drink contains up to 9 cubes of sugar, which is way more than the recommended daily amount of all sugar to be included in an adult's diet. Specialty hot drinks that you can get from those fancy shops calling no names. Check how much sugar is in the sweetened versions of their milky drinks. Most breakfast foods, and by that I'm talking about breakfast cereals, muesli, granola, cereal bars, unless they specifically say that they do not contain sugar, they can be incredibly sugary. So we shouldn't be surprised when our children go to school after having a sugary breakfast and they can't concentrate on the work that they're being given. Sweets and baked goods are high in refined sugar, and a lot of the canned goods and processed foods are high in refined sugar. Now, I know it's not easy to cook every day. So what I would say is if you're going to use foods, check the label and understand just what you're eating. Avoid putting jam on your bread. And also, if you're going to use nut butter, check your label and make sure that there's not a lot of sugar in your nut butter. I make my own. Avoid diet foods because often they take the fat out of diet food, and to make it palatable they put a lot of refined sugar in it. Avoid sauces like ketchup, salad dressing and pasta sauces that you've bought in the shops, because these also often have a lot of refined sugar in them. And try to avoid eating ready meals regularly, for example pizza, frozen meals and shop-bought macaroni cheese, because these also have a lot of refined sugar in them. So just as it was in the Garden of Eden, it always comes down to choice. You have all the information now. What are you going to do about it? Spiritual health and diet and physical health always go hand in hand. So Croydon and all those listening, I'm setting you a challenge. I'm calling it the Sugar Challenge. Let's try to reduce the amount of refined sugar in our diets. Let's become mindful eaters. Let's seek out healthy alternatives. And when possible, let's cook our own food. Read food labels so that you understand what you're putting in your body. And if you need some ideas about how to cook healthy plant-based foods, please join us for our plant-based cookery classes. Check our church website for more information. So at the beginning of this presentation, I said the topic was sweet enough, the danger of refined sugar. The reason why I entitled it Sweet Enough is because God created food that was already sweet enough for us. Sin has changed our palate, and we started craving foods that really make us lose control of our bodies and lose our connection with God. Now that you have the information, the choice really is in your hands.